I think it boils down to one word: authenticity. So, for my whole life, even when I was a teenager and growing up, I often really sought authenticity. And I'll give you an example, an early example. So when I was growing up in Westchester County, New York, I used to listen to a radio station called WRVR out of New York City. It was a jazz station. And on that station, I heard for the first time Gil Scott-Heron, who is a spoken word poet at the time, predecessor to rap. There was Gil Scott-Heron, I listened to his song, My Sister Nell Got Bit by a Rat in Whitey's on the Moon. And I'm like a teenager in my suburban bedroom affluent community. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And when I moved to New York a couple years later to go to NYU, I moved to Harlem. I moved to 145th Street to find Gil Scott-Heron because I understood he lived in Harlem. And I lived in Harlem for 4 years. And it was, uptown in the Sugar Hill area. Like, if you can't be authentic, you get sussed out, and that's dangerous.
Yes.
Like, the way to put a shield around you to protect you is to be authentic. And that means you have to, if you're a freak, you have to be your authentic, freaky self. You can't hide behind any masks at all. And that is a lesson that I really sought to learn, that I couldn't learn in any other way, and being young, I felt like I just wasn't really, had much to lose. I was very interested in all of this culture, and I had heard about Harlem, my whole life, and I was very interested in music and jazz and things. And then one day on television was Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan was giving a speech which was, "It's morning in America again." And at that time, I'd been living uptown for 4 years, and I had basically gone feral. Like, I was like a street guy. I mean, I was going to NYU, but I was just a party animal, really, for 24/7, uptown, downtown, anywhere. It's just like in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And it was really a great time to, punk rock was starting at CBGB's downtown. And I was a DJ at WNYU at the college radio station. So we were friendly with all the acts and all the clubs and all the bands. And we hung out with all the bands, and we hung out at all the jazz clubs uptown. And so, but I heard this Ronald Reagan speech. But I had run myself down to a degree. Like I wasted my entire college career because I just was like always out running around and partying and listening to bands and stuff. And I felt like, I'm going to be graduating soon, and I really have completely wasted my entire career in college, and I'm doomed. And so I heard this speech by Ronald Reagan. He's on TV saying there's morning in America again. So as it so happened to be the case, one of my part-time jobs during that era to keep myself going, my rent was $140 on 145th Street and Broadway. And you could live in New York City for $20 a day. I could pay rent. I could eat, pizza is $1 slice, falafel is $1 slice, a tray bag of good weed, $3 will last you several days, right? And you could just live and have a fabulous time. And but one of the part-time jobs that I had, I ended up working, just picking up a job on a Wall Street brokerage firm with a broker, doing what's called cold calling, the same job that Peter Schiff started his career doing, just dialing. And when I walked into this office at Payne Weber on 140 Broadway, which is just 2 blocks from Wall Street, I just fell in love with everything there. And it was a complete different, totally this authentic meme, struck me. Like, I felt like a certain familiarity with it, I guess because I was basically a snot from the suburbs anyway. So it's like, wow, these people, I really like the suits and the ties here, and everyone's making all this money. So this is 1983, and suddenly this bull market on Wall Street started. So the guy who I was working for, he said, well, we can get you set up with a license in 3 or 4 months. You can get on the phone and be a stockbroker. So That's exactly what I did. So I stayed on Wall Street for 8 years, from 82 to 1990, and I made a fuck ton of money. And all the bad habits I had up until that time that I started on Wall Street became worse because now I added money. So then in 1990, another big change, kind of on the theme of authenticity, and we're kind of trying to just throw yourself into situations that are foreign to you, but finding something within yourself that's authentic that allows you to survive and maybe even thrive. So in 1990, I went to Paris to see a friend, to go to a party, and I arrived in Paris in 1990, and I fell in love with Paris. I felt like I had been lied to my whole life, that this beautiful city existed, and I didn't really know about it the way that it struck me as being so beautiful and so spectacular. So I ended up 2 weeks, became 2 months, and then I said, fuck it. I called in my resignation, I sold my business, and I stayed in Paris for 5 years, doing nothing, because I had saved up a bunch of money and I wasn't needing to work. So I just lived in Paris and in France and in Europe, and just met people, and again, try to be my authentic self. And that was all I had to go with, because I didn't know French, I didn't know anybody. But if you allow your true character to be seen, people gravitate to that. If you are constantly behind a mask, or you're trying to please somebody, or trying to fulfill someone else's expectation, you'll never experience that kind of direct one-on-one relationship with people, right? And that is generally the greatest thing anyone can experience, is having a relationship with other people. People and humans are a very advanced species here on planet Earth, and they're very interesting. But in order to communicate with them, you really have to get rid of all the artifice and try to find, and it was easier, in the long time ago. The modern technology has obfuscated our souls. So I lived there for 5 years. Then I get a call one day from my friend from NYU, who I hadn't talked to in years, Alec Baldwin, who was an actor, famous actor at that point. He had married Kim Basinger. He said, oh, my wife Kim's coming to Paris to do a movie called Pret-a-Porter for Robert Altman, and I want to come see you and hang out. So he showed up, and he was there for 6-7 weeks, and we were just hanging out all day. I showed him a treatment for a film I had written just, on one of my unbusy days at the cafe. And he's like, wow, this would be a great vehicle for me and my brother Billy. So he called up Harvey Weinstein at Miramax, and by the next day they had bought this treatment for a script idea for a lot of money. And Alec was like, oh, I gotta go, I'm going back to Hollywood, we're gonna make this movie.
If you like that clip, then you definitely gotta check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really gonna like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, check that out over here. Come on, do it. I'll see you in there.